Giving her a wash just for you guys. Put some premium diesel Super Plus in here. I swear she drives so much better because of that. I bet you're all wondering why the bonnet is up, right? Basically this is a time capsule. It hasn't been renovated like a lot of these old trucks have been. It is as it is. It's been through the wars, as you can see. It's had a lot of dings, scratches, all of that stuff. So basically engine's original, gearbox and transfer case are original. Whines like anything, whines like a banshee on the highway. It's obviously a very warm environment for the driver right next to the transmission tunnel. That's why you need your flip-flops. Has it let us down? That's what you're here to find out, and that's what I'm going to tell you. If you don't own a Landy, you might have a laugh. We'll take the butt of your jokes any day because it's good fun, and that's just how we roll. I think that's a pretty big milestone, pun intended. What do you think? 400,000 Ks? We've had this vehicle for 10 years now. It's our daily driver. It's not a weekend warrior, it's not a pavement princess. This thing has been to Mongolia and back. It's crossed through all of North Africa. We've camped out of this vehicle for 2 years solid, and we've slept in it, on it, beside it, behind it, everything. It's been through all of Europe with us, from east to west, north to south. We've explored the Alps, the Pyrenees, we've been off-road, we've been through Corsica, we've been to the southern tip of Spain. So you need something that's pretty reliable in my opinion. So let's have a look at Britain's finest export, beyond Guinness, but that's Irish. And let's see how this thing has held up for us and how it still is doing that every single day. Engine, still original, the head's never been off it, and I can tell you why, because if we do go down the Alps and use engine braking a lot, you do eventually get some blue smoke out the back. You got to be aware of that. I'm thinking valve stem seals, and I haven't done it yet. The gearbox has had a modification, had a little plate over the drain plug. They might have lost it out in the desert and come up with a solution like that. Half shafts in the diff, no big deal. Diffs are fine. I've put some flanges on the rear just to keep the oil in basically. And front prop shaft went. I had to replace that one. Basically there was a user error. I didn't grease the nipples on the UJs, so that's why they gave up. So preventative maintenance on that side. What we have done is replace the radiator and the water pump, which I did myself, which was pretty interesting. It's quite a cool, easiest job on the planet. Cheap as well, which is not too bad. Clutch had to be replaced at a certain point. I don't know how old it was when we got it. It was a really good job. Something you can do at home. Also the parts are not exorbitantly expensive. One new set of tires, because I had some really old Nang Kang ATs. If you've seen those, hard as anything, hard as very slippery in the rain, which is not a good thing obviously, especially when you're lugging 3 tons around. What we haven't had to do is starter motors. Power steering pump, luckily, because those are very expensive, especially left-hand drive of this age. Basically the rest is okay. Bearings, no big deal. All of that held up really well. The one thing we did do was the swivels in front. Actually Beck did that herself. No joke. Because the old chrome swivels were pitted and rusted. Obviously it's gone off-road and done its thing. So they do start wearing and they were starting to seep out of the seals. So what you do, you replace the whole thing. Also something you do in your backyard or on your driveway, which is quite a nice job. That's done. The other big deal on this one is the bushes, because obviously you're going off-road. All the bushes were worn out and they have been replaced piece by piece. Also a death wobble, death shake. We've done that twice on the Panhard rod, sorted it out. It's been fine ever since. The other thing that is not related to the engine environment is rust, and we do have rust. The bottom of the doors are basically gone, and there's a hole in the passenger side floorboard where the bulkhead sits. That piece of steel is basically a hole at the moment. Not much else to report on that side, because the chassis has been sealed underneath, which is pretty good. Obviously the first owner, he was meticulous. I can tell you it went to North Africa because he wrote it all down and he had this little diary, this little logbook of everything, and each time they did a trip, came back, did a full service, replaced all the fluids, which is very good. The other thing, daily running things, wipers obviously, because they cost nothing, they last not as long. So welcome to Shea Land Rover. This thing was completely broken, which I managed to super glue together, and I fixed what happens in these ones, which do the dash vents or below here, is that the cable gets loose, let's say. So it's basically like a bicycle brake cable. If you reattach it, everything works fine. Heater works good, that's all great. The dashboard itself looks pretty good. It's got a couple of little splits there, and the main one is there. But for 32 years in the sunlight in southern France, that's pretty good going, I think. Yeah, we can see the kilometers now. It's basically kind of leveled out. When it hit 400,000, all the numbers were skewed. But hey, this thing, got my custom cup holders in here. A lot of different stuff was going on here. There used to be a radio up here. Used to be a two-way radio in there. Gearbox, as I said, it's pretty good. I mean, it's worn out, obviously. This works very well because you use it a lot. Steering wheel along the top. Don't know if you can see that. Yeah, it's worn smooth. Original steering wheel. It's got a bit of cracking in the top there from sun damage, and also that's where you put your hand when you're driving it. Here's the roof. Pretty standard. Look at these things. Very old, very dirty, very worn. I haven't cleaned the inside. And there the back obviously has been upgraded, be insulated, all of that stuff. Seats, we've got some special seat covers. Here's the original seats. What do you think of that? Padding looks okay. I don't know if it was replaced or not, but we haven't replaced it in the time we've had it. So from 280 to 400, the seats have held up pretty good. Seat belt is a bit of a thing, doesn't retract very well anymore, so you keep catching it in the door, as you know. The other thing that broke was this, snapped in half, so I replaced it with a Brit part, snapped in half again. Now that's original. The door lock I had to replace, and it's come out, and that's user error as well. I didn't use any Loctite on that, so I need to replace that. I did replace the starter barrel. At a certain point it wasn't holding the key on, so I had a little bungee cord coming around onto the other side there to keep, once you've got the key on in the on position, if you let it go it'll just turn back and the engine would turn off. A little bungee cord for that. Replaced that. Obviously I didn't replace the door locks along with that because I'm El Cheapo. Yeah, these things, I never understood this. Why can't this be one piece? Land Rover. I don't know if all of them are like that. That's basically the only rust you can see outside. Let's have a look under here. See, nice and wet. Got some newspaper from Brescia in Italy to try and absorb that. The dry flanges, I replaced those, obviously. The rear hasn't been so yeah, you can see it's been through the war. It's got some battle scars here. Obviously on here, I don't know where this came from. Spare wheel used to sit here, so you used to drive around with two spare wheels. I replaced these. Screws come out, as you can see. So you rev match nicely, very easy on the throttle. Max speed, I would say we hardly get above 95 kilometers an hour. Basically you're like a truck, you know, heavy Arctic, one of those things. That's basically how you're traveling down the road. It is noisy. If you want to play some music, you need to put your little Bluetooth speaker on maximum, but that's okay too. The headlights are crap, really bad. You're basically trying to avoid driving at night, so I need to look at upgrading those to maybe LEDs or something, or try to work something out. Indicator stalk has worn out a bit, so has the light switch. Wipers work pretty well. Basically everything works. Everything that should work does work. And man, I tell you what, we don't have a cover on our engine, one of those sound absorbent things, but it just sounds so good. Growls, rattles like a bunch of bolts, and it's just perfect. Besides the windscreen wipers, we've replaced the front brake pads. The rear drums haven't been replaced because they were not set properly, so they weren't actually being used properly. Now they are. We can finally slow down in the Alps, which does help us a lot. And you don't have to work on the engine so much, and you get this blue smoke coming out. But basically, it gets through the roadworthy every year, which is pretty amazing if you think about it. It's let us down twice. Yes, it has broken down on road, okay? So if you don't own a Landy, you can have a quick laugh. It will take the butt of your jokes any day because it's good fun, and that's just how we roll. The first time was on our way back from Croatia. In Croatia, it just died on the road. Luckily, we were right outside of a parking lot of a supermarket. Pushed it in there with a starter motor, and then we spent 6 hours trying to find the problem. And we replaced the fuel lift pump with an electrical fuel pump off a Peugeot. We bought it at a spare shop. That didn't work either, and eventually we called the AA man. He came out. HAK is the AA in Croatia. Top guys, really. They spend a huge amount of time, very friendly, very knowledgeable, and eventually we found this starter cut-off solenoid. This little valve here, there's this little spring, and there was no spring in the other one, which meant that this thing was just permanently closed, right? That little plunger, which pops out when you kill it, that had gone. So we pulled the plunger out, put the thing back in, and we could drive off and we were fine again. So we just needed to replace that part. And then because of all of that stuff, I'd left it a bit long, I decided to replace the electrical fuel pump with the original mechanical fuel pump. So I bought one, obviously in a blue box, and that's my fault. And at a certain point, about 2 years later, we just stopped getting any forward motion and we were towed away. And that was me, because I had to replace that with a very cheap aftermarket part. So here we have the TDI. As you can see, it's weeping a bit of oil. I'm not sure where the oil is coming from. You tell me down below. Obviously we replaced the fuel lift pump. There's the fuel filter. I did replace this, the breather. Basically, if it's smoking a little bit more than it should, it's kind of an indication. Super simple to do that as well. There's only a water pump and our viscous, which is working. I've hardly ever had a viscous that's working in over 15 years of owning these things, and now I'm really happy to have that. Also quite an easy job. Also taking that off, I'll give you a tip for that. Go and have a look at that video. This I think is for the winch, which is built in here, kind of hidden away. So yeah, as I said, it's the original engine. I mean, it hasn't been, the head hasn't been redone as far as I know. Turbo as well, no big deal. Stainless exhaust, that makes a big difference. Obviously, if that starts to rust, then you've got a problem. So the clutch, yeah, I replaced the slave cylinder a couple of times, I think, because it kept leaking out of the reservoir here. And if you fill it up, you can drive about 100 k's or so, and then you have to fill it up again, and so you keep going because the pedal just goes to the floor, and then you know it's empty. Now we seem to have a problem with the slave cylinder of the clutch, which I should have replaced, I guess. It was still working fine, don't leave it, and now it's not working fine. So we got rid of that. For the rest, it's been running perfectly, actually better than expected as a Landy. I traced it down to that little pipe finally in the end of the whole thing, which was quite a mission. There's a pipe down there that connects your slave to the pipe coming up to the master cylinder, which is basically what the problem was. It had little micro porous holes in it, squeezing out all the oil slowly. So there's your engine, guys, 400k. Very happy with that. Not sure what that means, all of that there, but it has a genuine parts sticker on it, and I'm really happy with that. One little thing we did was replace the battery, which you're supposed to do. It had a really old Optima Blue top in there, which was fantastic, but after about 8 years it also gave up. Who knows how old it was. Electrical, obviously a lot of little bulbs, headlight bulbs, and the headlight switch as well, worn out. I don't know if you know how it works. It's got that little ball in it, little microscopic little thing, which falls into a little hole as you switch from off to marker lights to headlights, and that thing had gotten stuck in its little detent. So I bodged a quick fix, you know, those little packets you get with screws in them at the hardware that hang on the little hook, that little plastic thing. If you peel them apart, use one of those, stick it in the headlight switch, and it keeps that little ball bearing in just enough to give a little bit of resistance, but you can still use the switch. So I don't know if that counts as a failure point, because we've been driving like this for about 5 years now and it's been going pretty good. As I said, the door bottoms have disappeared basically. The door hinges have got a bit of rust on them like any car. I mean, it's 32 years old now, which is pretty good. Obviously the front flaps, as you all know, if you own a TDI or anything younger than a Puma, they do leak. We get water on our toes every time we're driving, seeps through the dashboard. A lot of people seal them off or replace the rubbers. I'm just going to leave it because, like I said, it's a time capsule. I want to see how far this thing can go as it is standard. We've had the vehicle for 10 years. We bought it at 280. We hardly looked at the vehicle, drove it for 10 minutes, paid the guy, and that's it. And it hasn't really let us down much. 1.5 times basically. It's not much to go wrong. It's very simple. Tell you what, all the stuff you don't need is what they put into car wiring looms these days. Can you imagine how many kilometers of wiring you have in a Veyron or a Bentley or a really souped up Toyota? You've got everything in there. Like, here's the list. I would say a 200 is better than a 300 in that respect, but I'm biased. I know there's a reputation for being unreliable. I'm not listening to that. This is our daily driver. It goes everywhere we go. Their products are actually better than you think they are, but we'll take the butt of your jokes any day because it's good fun, and that's just how we roll. But basically, if you just treat it a bit of care, a bit of attention, a bit of mechanical sympathy, it will last a long time. Basically, I can't speak for the previous owner because we took over this car at 280,000 Ks. The first owner was an expedition guy, and he used to take this vehicle all the way through North Africa from, let's say, Tunisia, Egypt, Mauritania, Algeria, all of that stuff, Morocco. This vehicle has also been all the way to Mongolia, and do you have any idea how far that is? And I can't say what the roads are like. Anyway, the second owner was a donkey farmer somewhere in southern France. So this vehicle comes from southern France, from the Provence region, somewhere near Nice, Monaco area. So it's a French car. It's been quite dry, I think, most of its life. The donkey farmer, he didn't think he could fit more than 2 bales in the back, and that's not ideal, so he went and changed it for a pickup. We picked it up for a bargain, totally kitted out completely with expedition stuff. It's been insulated, we can sleep inside, there's storage, there's an extra diesel tank. The original diesel tank is bigger, to 105 liters. We've got water tanks, a whole lot of stuff. We've got a winch bumper on the front, all that stuff. Yeah, so right now I don't know how the prices are, but for when did we buy it? 10 years ago. We've had this vehicle for 10 years. We've put on 120,000 Ks roughly. Basically, it's been our daily driver. That's the big difference. That's what a lot of people don't realize, is that these things can be dailied. A lot of them are second cars. They're weekend warriors. They go on holiday once a year, and the rest of the time they're stored. This thing gets used every single day, as you can see now from our driver.
Hello. My favorite piece of road.
Bit of a rainy day today, as you can see, which is unusual for us, but we'll go with it. Lovely area around here in Provence, in case you're interested. Our little time capsule, which is here, hasn't been changed, hasn't been modified beyond the expedition stuff which you need, but everything else mechanically has been as it came from the factory. And some of the blue box stuff that I've put in there still working somehow. So guys, I hope this has been informative. Hope it's been a little bit entertaining, I suppose, where you can understand how these vehicles don't really deserve their reputation of being completely unreliable. So thanks for watching, guys. Catch you on the next one, and as we are, keep rolling. The bonnet up's just for show, okay? Spoiler alert. You might be wrong with your ideas and your opinions on these vehicles. You're going to find yourself stuck without being able to get... No, you can't say that either. Quick backstory on the vehicle.